So, can an ancient philosophy, something from way back with Roman emperors and slaves, actually help our relationships today? Well, we're about to dive into how Stoic wisdom can help us build connections that are not just stronger, but deeper and way more resilient. Okay, so when you picture a Stoic in love, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's probably someone who's a little aloof, maybe emotionally detached. But is that really what it means to love like a Stoic? Yeah, the popular image is exactly that: cold, distant, maybe even emotionally unavailable. This picture of someone holding their partner at arm's length just to avoid getting hurt. It's a super common idea, but let me tell you, that isn't Stoicism. That's just fear wearing a fancy philosophical disguise. Real, authentic Stoicism isn't about shutting down your emotions or trying to feel less. It's actually a powerful guide for loving better, for loving more wisely, and for building relationships that can seriously weather any storm life throws at them. The Stoics really valued relationships. They even had a special category for them: preferred indifference. Now, I know that sounds a bit academic and clunky, but it just means that while things like love and friendship aren't the only things you need for a good life, they're absolutely natural, desirable, and honestly, one of the most important parts of a life well lived. So the whole point of being a Stoic in love isn't about avoiding connection. No way. It's about changing the very nature of our attachments, moving away from that fragile, kind of needy love to one that is strong, appreciative, and rooted in reality. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we actually do that? Well, the Stoics gave us a pretty amazing toolkit for building these kinds of resilient relationships. We're going to unpack 3 core practices here. First, this idea of loving with a reserve clause. Second, learning how to separate a person from their actions. And third, the all-time Stoic classic, focusing only on what you can actually control. All right, let's just jump right in with that first tool. The philosopher Epictetus gave this advice, and wow, I know, it sounds absolutely shocking, almost brutal, right? Who talks like that? But just stick with me for a second, because its purpose is the exact opposite of how it sounds. See, the goal here isn't to be cold. It's to cultivate this incredibly profound sense of appreciation by gently reminding yourself that this moment, this person, isn't guaranteed forever. You're basically forced to cherish them more deeply, right here, right now. You stop taking them for granted. You don't waste time on silly arguments because you're so aware that your time together is precious and, well, finite. Now for the second tool. This one's a subtle but really powerful mental shift for those moments when people, inevitably mess up. Our default reaction is often to make the mistake their whole identity. He forgot our anniversary, so he is a thoughtless person. A Stoic response, though, is way more precise. It separates the person from what they did. He forgot our anniversary. It was a thoughtless action. That tiny little distinction makes all the difference. It creates space for forgiveness instead of just jumping straight to condemnation. And that leads us perfectly into our third tool, focusing on what you control. I mean, so much of our frustration in relationships comes from trying to change our partner, right? The Stoic approach is simple. Stop. You can't control them. The only person you can truly improve is yourself. So instead of demanding they listen better, you work on becoming a better listener. Instead of fuming about their messiness, you practice patience. Your entire focus shifts from fixing them to improving you. So when you start putting these tools together, they build a completely different foundation for love. They create this incredible shift away from a love that's based on attachment and neediness toward one that's built on pure appreciation. And this really gets to the heart of it all. A love of attachment is rooted in fear. It whispers, "I cannot be happy without you." But a love of appreciation, that's rooted in gratitude. It says, "My life is immeasurably better because you are in it." One is about clinging and possession, the other is about freedom and thanks. Think about it like this, like watching a beautiful sunset. You don't get angry when it fades away, right? You don't try to bottle it up or possess it. You just feel this immense gratitude for getting to experience its beauty. That is the essence of appreciative love. So what does a relationship built on this foundation actually look like? It looks unshakable. Not because nothing bad will ever happen, of course it will, but because it's prepared for reality. The foundations are pretty simple, but they're incredibly strong. First, it's based in reality. This acceptance that things aren't permanent, Second, it's built on personal responsibility, a real commitment to being the best partner you can possibly be. And third, it's defined by deep appreciation, the daily practice of loving fully and gratefully, right here and now. Now, this doesn't mean you won't feel pain if a relationship ends. Come on, the Stoics were human, not robots. Loss hurts, a lot. But that pain doesn't have to completely destroy you. You can grieve the loss while still being deeply, truly grateful for the time you had. That right there is the core of Stoic resilience. And that brings us to one last question to chew on. We're taught to think that the strongest love is the one that screams forever. But what if the most powerful, the most resilient, and the most deeply appreciative love is actually the one that's brave enough to accept that it might not?